Welcome back to Project Geekology. This week we are on episode 35. I'm Anthony, and joining me as always is...
Dakota, the guy that runs the Geekritique YouTube channel. You may know me, or you may not. That's alright, because today we're going to be talking about something that's not entirely geek-related, but it's something that everyone should give a try, because I think you will enjoy it. It's just so good. And that would be Ted Lasso.
Yes. Which is crazy, because I feel like Ted Lasso is making waves, but still there's a lot of people that haven't watched the show. It's popular enough for people to have heard about it, but still not popular enough to where everybody has seen it.
Right, and for those of you who do not know what the show is, it's a basic rundown for those who are in the uninitiated. It's Jason Sudeikis, who's playing a character named Ted Lasso. He's just a Southern coach from America who, for whatever reason, was bought by the football team, or the soccer team for us Americans, AFC Richmond, to coach their league, or their team. And he is a super unconventional coach. He's just the nicest guy in the world, and for whatever reason, his methods work, and it just baffles everyone around him. And that's basically like the elevator pitch for Ted Lasso. But before we get into anything further, Anthony, we haven't been podcasting for a while. What have you been up to recently?
I know, it has been a while, and I apologize to you all. We have been wanting to...
No, don't apologize to them. Don't apologize. They don't deserve it.
We have been wanting to get an episode out for a while now, and we are getting back together and looking to get that consistency back. But what have I been up to? I've been on like a serious Persona 5 binge. Like, I had played it, I had bought it towards the end of last year. I bought Persona 5 Royal, and I played a little past the first stage, well, like the first palace, for those of you who have played Persona, and I stopped. And it's not because I didn't like it, but like I kind of got distracted and I never got back to it. But I've been playing it again, and man, like, Persona 5 is just, it is such a good JRPG. I absolutely like it. There's so much that it has going on. One of the gripes that a lot of people have, or some people have, for Royal, or the game in general, is that it's a long game. It really is a long game. It's like an hour. It's like 100 hours,
worth of gameplay. Oh man!
And then Royal adds like an extra 30 hours.
But if it's worth it, and you're enjoying the story and the characters that you're involved with, then it shouldn't be a problem.
It's not to me.
And honestly, that's a good thing that it's so long, because you're getting your money's worth out of what you're buying. What are you playing it on?
I'm playing it on PS4.
Okay.
Because we all know that it's impossible to get a PS5.
Is it still impossible? I feel like it's better now.
It's still impossible. And that's mostly because of the microchip shortage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's messing up pretty much everything.
Now, is that a COVID-related thing?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, Persona 5, it was only on PS4, and then when PS5 came out, you can play it on PS5, and it gives it that boost. But yeah, it's a PS4 game. Dakota, I know that I've been telling you forever to play that game.
Yep. You have.
And I'm telling you...
Do I look like a guy who has 130 hours to just spare? Do I?
Of course you do.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
No, but I know that you're somebody that does like to kind of sit back from time to time and play some video games. Even if it's been a while. But I know that if you do give it a chance, because I know you like JRPGs. Yeah. I mean, you like Final Fantasy. And that's the good thing about Persona, is that Persona actually has that Final Fantasy effect where you don't have to have played the first four to understand what's going on. They teach you about the world. It's crazy because each game has a different group of people that's in it, and their worlds are different in the way that they get into and navigate this like quote unquote metaverse is different. Like in Persona 4, the way that they got into the metaverse was through TVs. And that's how I got into Persona. Was I played Persona 4 Golden on the PS Vita.
Okay.
And so yeah, that's what like captured my love of Persona. And so in Persona 5, the way that they get into the metaverse is like a navigator app on their phones.
Okay. All right. So I'm trying to understand. Just give me a brief explanation. Are the different numbered games following the same individuals? Are they different universes all connected through this metaverse? Is that what I'm meant to understand?
Yes. So, they're all kind of like connected through this metaverse, but the characters aren't connected. Like, you don't, I mean, at least so far that I've seen in Persona 5, like you don't hear about, any of the past characters in Persona 5,
Okay. It's kind of like Final Fantasy in that there are similar themes, similar, stuff that you would fight, but it's a different world every time. Right.
Like, and then there's like specific things that are the same across. Remember how in Final Fantasy, there's like chocobos, and then the magic is like the same.
Right.
The same thing with Persona. The magic is the same. There's personas in all of them. There are these inner beings that awaken, or like these people awaken themselves into like inner beings that were like, they kind of, finally like it's like that confidence. They hit that confidence, and like their persona like awakens. Mm-hmm. It's really good. I really enjoy Persona. The Persona 5, like the original game, came out I think in 2017, 2018. Mm-hmm. And then Royal came out, I think, at like the beginning of 2020. So I'm actually glad that I didn't get Persona when it first came out, because Royal came out, and Royal's like it's a more of a definitive edition. They have a whole new like semester, because you're like a school kid in high school. It's like, and that's like a common theme. They're like all high school kids also.
Okay, got it.
They're really, it's really cool, because you're living this day-to-day life, but then you also have this other identity as somebody who goes into this world. You kind of navigate and you fight creatures and stuff in this world, and it's really cool. Just like these different settings, and some of the creatures that look crazy, it wouldn't be Japan if they didn't look crazy.
Naturally. And, all right. Well, we shouldn't talk too much about Persona 5, just because I feel like it's really easy to just fall into like a trap of just talking about one thing when our episode's truly about Ted Lasso.
No. Yeah, I was about to cut it off.
What else have you been up to besides Persona 5?
Well, the usual, working, and on the day of recording, I'm going to go see Shang-Chi finally.
Nice. Yeah, so Shang-Chi is actually very good. I've already seen it. I saw it Thursday night, and I don't know if it cracks my top 10 in the MCU, but it definitely has some of the best action. Definitely the best like martial arts work and choreography that we've ever seen in the MCU. So that's something that's really cool. So I'm looking forward to hearing your reaction about that. Maybe next week we should do Shang-Chi?
Yeah, we can.
Let's do that, because I'm probably actually going to be seeing it again today as we record as well, because we're bringing my brother-in-law. But yeah, it's a really good movie. I really recommend you guys to check it out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I can't wait to do that. But yeah, nothing too crazy on my end. How about you? What's going on with you?
Well, beyond Shang-Chi, I've been slowly tackling the mountain of Star Wars canon. I've been trying to make a Star Wars canon timeline for a long time. And if you have seen my timeline journal series, I have like a visual timeline that I'm slowly adding more titles to as I go. So that's been kind of taking up a lot of my time, but I'm enjoying it. I've just picked up some mangas that have been released. This one is the one I'm reading right now is Leia, Princess of Alderaan. It's a adaptation of the Claudia Gray book, Princess of Alderaan. And it's really good. You know, they really capture a young Leia's like facial features really well. Then there's another one that's another adaptation of the young adult book Guardians of the Wills, which follows Baze Malbus and Chirrut Imwe from Rogue One.
That's my boy.
I haven't read the actual book for this, and I think that might be the next book that I pick up, Guardians of the Wills, so that I can kind of read it alongside the manga. But one thing that I'm really excited about, because I'm a big fan of the High Republic, and I've pretty much read everything else in the High Republic, is the Edge of Balance manga that is strictly a manga for the High Republic. It's an original concept, original script, an original story based in the High Republic era of Star Wars, which, for those of you who aren't caught up, is 200 years before the Star Wars prequel movies. And I'm really enjoying that era. I also listened to... They created Cavan Scott, he recently created a audio drama called Tempest Runner, and it follows Lorna D. About a year and change after the first book that you read, Light of the Jedi, Anthony. So that's been good. I'm really enjoying the Marvel What If series on Disney Plus. It's not capturing me the same way that Loki and WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier did, just because I know that these are only like, if they're ever referenced again, it'll just be like for cameo appearances, maybe in like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness or whatever. But the stories themselves are really interesting, and I think this last week with Doctor Strange in episode 4 was probably my favorite so far.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's pretty much a catch-up to what I've been up to. Shall we get into the meat and bones of our discussion today?
Yes, I can't wait to talk about the show. I think this is a show that everybody needs to give a chance.
We'll be back after a quick break.
I hate talking.
Do you love talking about any topic and are never frustrated during conversations? Then I Hate Talking is not a podcast for you.
But if there are topics that you avoid, then listen to I Hate Talking.
Do you know the definition of every word others use? I Hate Talking is not a podcast for you.
But if you are curious about the definition and historical usage of words, then listen to I Hate Talking.
Do you know about current events and other random topics? Then I Hate Talking is not a podcast for you.
But if you enjoy conversations on a variety of topics, then listen to I Hate Talking.
Listen to I Hate Talking wherever you get your podcasts.
Episodes drop every Thursday. Listen, like, and follow I Hate Talking today.
I think we should talk non-spoilers first, so that for those of you who aren't into Ted Lasso, you can give it, you can learn a little bit about the show and what makes it work for us, and why you should definitely give it a shot, even if it's not the geek content that you're looking for in a podcast like Project Geekology. But it's what's funny is that a lot of the people that I follow online, geeks or solely geeks, are also just talking about Ted Lasso. It seems to be like each and every week that's all that they can muster up the courage to talk about, just because it's so good, and I have like mutual friends like in the Star Wars community and the Marvel community, and they all are just raving about the show. And the reason, I think, is just because it's all about kindness, The entire moral of the show is how kindness is the best option. And we'll definitely be talking about that in depth as we go along. But what are we going to be doing? Are we talking just the first season or just the show in general? Because the second season is wrapping up. I think there's a couple episodes left. We're not going to be talking obvious, like, huge spoilers or whatever. until maybe like halfway through this discussion. But what do you think, Anthony? Should we just discuss the show as a whole?
Yeah, I think that we should talk about the show as a whole, because there's a heart to the show that I think that kind of transcends over the entire series. So right. I think that we should cover the show as a whole.
Yeah, we have a lot of characters that the show follows, not just the titular character of Ted Lasso, played by Jason Sudeikis. We also have a number of characters. A fan favorite is Roy Kent, who is a professional football player. And by football, we're talking soccer here for our American listeners. And he is this grumpy old player. And he's not really like super old, but you know, he's probably late 30s. So he's at the end of his career for sure. But he's just a grumpy old guy who's how do I explain? He doesn't like when others are picked on, I guess. But it seems like he's just as, I guess, biting to those bullies within the team as they are to the people they're bullying. So it's kind of a weird backwards mentality that this guy has.
You know what? When we get to know him at first, he's the team captain.
Right. Yeah, he's the one who is leading not only the practices but also the game in terms of like what the team is going through. And I'm gonna say, at least for my part, I have never actively played on a soccer team. I've never watched soccer, but I know the basic gist of how the game works, but I'm not savvy by any means in terms of terminology or positions or anything like that. So if I fumble, which is not a soccer term, please don't hold it against me. Anthony, how are you on that front?
Well, I'm actually the exact opposite, because I actually played soccer in high school, and or football for our European.
Do we have any European?
And everybody else? Yeah, I think that there's or anybody else in the world, because really it is football to everybody else. And so yeah, I did play, and I do watch it, not as much as I'd like to, but one of my favorite teams happens to be Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
I know that if there is any anybody from Europe, or especially those who are really big on the Premier League, they're probably groaning, because I know there's a lot of people who don't like Chelsea. But that's the thing, is that football to everybody else, especially in Europe and England, that's the thing, man. That's their football. Football to them is American football to Americans. Like how they are. Like they go to bars. They're here.
I think it's more so. I think it's more than that.
Oh
actually,
yeah,
because it's a cultural thing.
It is.
In the UK and other places in Europe and the rest of the world, like one of the characters that we will talk about later, football is life, and I'm referring to one of the characters, Danny Rojas, who is so fun. But it's true. Like I have some people I follow from the UK and stuff, and I have coworkers that are from Europe and Germany and Poland, and they talk about it in ways that you would never hear American football fan talk about their team or whatever. So there's definitely a cultural following to it that you don't normally see with American football or other American sports like baseball or whatever. Maybe baseball, actually, but for those of you in that who are fans of the baseball league and stuff. But
right, and I find it interesting, because soccer aka football to everybody else.
All right, you gotta. All right, because we can't keep doing that. It's either we'll call it whatever we call it. We don't have to correct ourselves every time.
Was every time we say soccer, somebody in Europe cringes. But like, I do find it interesting that literally America, and maybe Canada, I mean, but I know for a fact America, that like we just don't care about soccer at all.
There are other vices here, there are other sports that have become extremely popular, like basketball and baseball and football, American football. And I feel that because and obviously I'm not trying to say that those sports don't exist in other places outside of America.
Right.
But I do believe that because there's so much high-profile sports, or because there are so many high-profile sports in the U.S., other things get crowded out. And, I also think that because football in England and everything is so, or Europe rather, is so, it's the number one sport, everyone follows it, versus in the US, depending on your cultural background, depending on where you're from, depending on the state or the city that you're in, you're going to be following one team from one sport, or you're going to be following one sport in general instead of all of the big ones, And
I know that we're kind of talking about soccer, but I mean it's relevant because it's the big overlying theme of what the show is. But yeah, I mean I've talked to people who like football, or American football, and I've asked them, why don't you like soccer, or I've asked people why they don't like soccer, and to them they believe that it's boring because it's just people going back and forth kicking a ball around. But I feel like the same could be said about football. I mean, each play is maybe a few seconds, and then they're stopping.
I personally find
football,
American football, very boring. I personally don't find soccer to be boring because there's so much more happening in every play.
Exactly, and that's why I prefer to watch basketball rather than American football, or soccer rather than American football, because there's constant movement going on. And basketball, there's like a constant moving of plays, whereas football, the plays are being made up, then their formations are being set. Sure, they do change, though. Sometimes they do change the set, the setup on the fly, just to kind of throw off the other team. But I agree. I just think that in America, soccer should have a little bit more of an understanding, because I mean it really is crazy, because I mean I've played soccer, and like I mean it's rough. It can get rough out there. I've been to a professional soccer match before. I've been to an MLS match, and people, I mean, like, those things get filled. I mean, and the energy is crazy when you go to a soccer match.
Yeah, there's a difference in the energy that you would experience in, like baseball or football versus soccer. The fans of, especially when you go to, and actually this is one thing that we wanted to do when we were in London last. We wanted to go to a game, but we didn't get I guess we couldn't like figure out the timing right, but whatever. Supposedly, like, the energy is enormously different than you would see in American sports.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, it's cool. The chants that they do in the show, the fans, that's a real thing, dude. That is a real thing. Right.
So let's get into the show a little bit. The basic premise, as we mentioned before, Ted Lasso, he's this coach who only ever coached an American Football League junior team, is sent to the UK with him and his like co-coach, who we will call Coach Beard because that's his name in the show. They are taken on by AFC Richmond, who has recently gone through several managerial shifts for stuff that we'll get into later on. And they want this guy who's never experienced or played anything regarding soccer to coach that team. And Ted Lasso uses his charisma, his kindness, and his charm to basically get the team back into shape. Yeah. And it's such a ride, honestly. You know, it's almost like the feeling that you get at the end of a Rocky movie. You know, there's always that heartwarming, like zero to hero moment. You know, not that anyone in particular is a zero in this show, but they're over the course of it, everyone grows as people in ways that you wouldn't expect. And I think that's the heart of the show, is that people change. Another thing I really like about Ted Lasso, and I think this is why the show works so well for Americans, is that he doesn't know anything about soccer. He doesn't even know that they have tie games in soccer. You know, he doesn't know the basics of the sport. So he's learning as we're learning. And it's not it's not like it's teaching us how to play football and stuff, but it's basically like just introducing us to the concept alongside our main character. And I think that journey works in a lot of different taking this back to like a fantasy or sci-fi setting. Our main character is usually the person who knows nothing about the world he's entering, and that's where the wonderment comes. You know, that the whole craze about like stuff like Harry Potter wouldn't work if the main character didn't come from a normal or his own world into this wizarding world, you know, where he's learning all of these new things, and it's wonderment. So it's kind of the same thing for Ted Lasso. He doesn't know anything about this culture, this game, how to coach these people, or how to deal with people in the UK, but he's taking his own knowledge and bringing it to bear, and there's a certain wonderment of him learning stuff that we're also learning as well.
Right. And I think that something, and this goes along with what you're saying, is that it does work for Americans, because we could easily put ourselves in his shoes. Like, you know, the average American who doesn't know about soccer would be like, I don't know how you could do it. I have no idea. They have all sorts of things, you know, like the concept of being offsides. Like, you know, we don't understand, a lot of people don't understand what that is. And in the game of soccer, I mean, there's offsides for football, but you know, it's different. So it's easier for us to kind of put ourselves. I don't think it would have worked if it was, you know, an English, you know, somebody who was from England that was underqualified becoming a coach. You know, this is somebody who is underqualified, but like from a completely different part of the world where soccer is really at the bottom, one of the sports at the bottom of the totem pole, because you really hear about everything else but soccer. Right.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the other characters really quick before we get into some spoilers. But another one of the main characters that we will encounter is Rebecca. And yes. She's the new owner of AFC Richmond, the soccer team. And it was her decision to bring Ted Lasso on. And that was, you know, everyone is criticizing her for this thing. And the reason I say she's the new owner of the team is because when she went through a divorce with the previous owner, she won the rights to AFC Richmond, which is a huge thing for her, obviously, but it kind of becomes a mystery in the first couple episodes of the show that we'll talk about why she decided to go the American route and hire Ted Lasso when they already had a perfectly capable coach who knew soccer through and through, and was actually from the UK and everything. So she's a great character, and you go through like phases of like hating her and loving her throughout the show, you know? Like she has moments where you're like, oh, she's just kind of like a damaged individual. And then other times you're like, wow, this character's a real jerk.
Right.
But I love that.
And then on the opposite end of that spectrum is Ted Lasso.
Right.
Ted Lasso, and one of the things that, and this isn't a spoiler, this is just really, this is a quality of the character, but he has these little sayings and these little jokes that he likes to make throughout the show, and it's his character. That's what makes his character. It is like, I mean, one of the first things that he, when they get on the plane to go to England, he talks to Coach Beard, and he kind of asks him like how he's doing, and Coach Beard is like, he like kind of states, his like nervousness about it. And he's like, that's good, it's kind of like riding a horse. If you're comfortable while doing it, then something's wrong. Something like that. He does jokes like this throughout the show, and like that's what his character is. And like I love it when they have a reoccurring thing in a character, and it's just it's a really charming thing about him, because you're like, oh, there goes Ted Lasso with his little jokes.
And it's disarming. It disarms the other people. They don't know how to respond to a lot of the things that they're saying, or that he's saying. And that works on a psychological level, like to his advantage, because he has kind of control over the conversation. Not that that's his goal, but it does put him in charge of the conversations that he ends up having in funny ways, just because, like I said, he disarms the people with kindness, or with quirkiness, or with these southern sayings that you would never hear from other people. And it's awesome. Hilarious. It is awesome. Yeah. So I don't know, I think we're skating around a lot of things, but you guys really need to check this show out. You really do. It's probably the best show on television right now, at least that I've been keeping up with.
Right. I would say it's the best like non-geeky thing that I've been keeping up with. And I actually like having a show like that, because don't get me wrong, I love watching geeky things. I love surrounding myself with geeky things, but then I like having something here and there that I connect with that isn't exactly that.
Right, it grounds you a little bit.
Right. And it's actually, it's meaningful for me, because I do like soccer, and they talk about things that like I'm like, oh wow, I actually do know about that,
Yeah. So the show is on its second season right now. I think it just released its 7th or 8th episode this past week, and each and every week has been fantastic. Some of them have been much better than others, but the show has not lost any quality in the second season. So I definitely recommend giving the show a shot if you haven't already. But we're going to be jumping into spoilers now for the remainder of our discussion, just because we want to talk about some of these things. So
yeah.
All right. If you haven't seen it, please stop watching now. Go watch the show and come back when you're ready. Spoilers. We should have like a noise that we.
No, it'll just be you every week, like spoilers.
Anyway, so let's. I think we have to talk about because we were just talking about it, the relationship between Ted Lasso and Rebecca, the owner of AFC Richmond. The reason she brought him onto the team was to fail.
Yeah, to sabotage the team. Because
that was the thing that her ex-husband, Rupert Mannion, loved most in, I guess, in his life, I guess. She wanted him to hurt, so she wanted to destroy the team. By doing so, she wanted to bring a good man, who, she didn't know anything about Ted Lasso, right, besides the fact that he was kind of like an internet sensation from some viral video.
Right.
She brought him in to fail because she knew he knew nothing about this culture. And every turn, everything that he does kind of proves her goal false in a way, you know?
Yeah.
He meets every challenge with a smiling face and, you know, a warm heart. And it's like I said, disarming.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny because like in the beginning, she does her best to like kind of brush him off, but like he's like not really having it. He just, like he brings in these he brings in like these like little like biscuit things, and you know like and like at first she's like, oh, I don't, you know, she's like, oh, I don't have time for this, you know. Right. And then like, you know, but she loves it. She's like, oh my god, like what is this? Like she it's delicious to her. And he's like, oh yeah, well, you know, I'll come in every morning. It'll be biscuits with the boss.
And she freaks out because she's like the stereotypical businesswoman. She's trying to be very professional. She is very professional. I'm not saying she's trying to be, but he is trying to break into her walls, I guess, you know? So he's trying to understand his immediate boss, basically. And by doing so, he's trying to get as close as possible to her. And yeah, like you said, he's bringing her these biscuits, and there's a whole running plot for the like first couple episodes where she has her I don't know, is Higgins a secretary? Is he? Yeah, he's kind of like a secretary, right?
Like an
assistant, right?
Yeah.
Higgins is basically the guy that for the first handful of episodes is the punching bag of Rebecca, you know?
Right. He's like the lackey, essentially. And,
yes.
And he's pretty much also like trying to help her in any way that he can to realize this plan to destroy the team, you know? But, you know, Ted Lasso being Ted Lasso, you know, he's trying to connect with his boss. And, you know, she doesn't really, you know, she's like not really having it. But like being him, he's like this extremely optimistic person. He's just like, I just feel like he doesn't have like this plan like, oh, I'm going to get her, I'm going to break down her walls. It's just him. Like, he's like, I want to connect with the people. Like the kind of like the chemistry that he has with his assistant, was it Beard? Is amazing. Like, I absolutely love it because Beard, like, he looks like this super stoic person. But he does things at first like you don't expect. Yeah,
he's very stone-faced, but he's willing to joke around, and he has his own humor, you know.
Right, he'll do like little silly things with Ted.
Yeah, but like we were talking, she sends Higgins on this hunt to find the bakery or wherever he's getting these tasty biscuits from. And it turns out he's making them, you know, in his own time.
Yes.
He's baking his own stuff.
I started laughing when I saw that. I was like, oh my gosh. I said, this guy has got her hooked. He's got her hooked, and they will never be able to find it because he's the one making them.
And it becomes like almost therapeutic for her as over the course of the show. Like we see him like come in at the start of the episodes to give her a thing, and she just like opens a box and immediately like takes a bite, and you could tell it's just like exactly what she's craving. She's
Right,
become
right.
addicted to these treats.
It becomes like part of the show. It's like the opening of the show. He comes in, he gives her the biscuits, and then like whatever it is going on in that day, like they talk about it. But yeah, like it's become part of the show. And yeah, man, like yeah, I absolutely love that character. So I mean, we've talked a little bit about the the coaching staff and some of the management. There's also there's some of the, and some a little bit about the players. We've talked about Roy. We haven't talked about in this first season. There's kind of like the antagonist of the Jamie Tart.
Jamie Tart.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that. So there's that. There's also like the team manager, like the towel boy, which was Nate in that first season, and he was like the punching bag kind of for like the team. They would kind of like make fun of him, and you know.
So Nate's an interesting character, and we'll talk a little bit more about his character arc because he's going down in season 2. He's going down a darker path in terms of he's seeing changes in his own life that he's never experienced, and he's using that power to abuse others, unfortunately. But in the first season, he's you feel bad for the guy. He's the guy in the shadows that's like keep making sure that the team is like getting their towels, he's the water boy, he's just the guy doing all the background stuff, making sure their cleats are cleaned and everything. So he's being picked on by Jamie
Dakota,
Tart and friends.
They're called boots, okay? Don't forget, they are called boots.
I'm sorry, but that is not a boot. As an American, I can happily say they're wrong. Those are not boots.
But yeah, no, you're right. But yeah, Jamie's like one of the biggest like bullies against him, and he gets like other players that kind of join alongside that also.
And Jamie it's interesting because he's the best person, he's the best player on the team. So he has this mindset that I'm the best and everyone else is beneath me or is working for me, So he has no problem making fun of others, and he doesn't see a problem. And he's been raised by people who, tell him to put others beneath him. So his whole life, he's been the guy on top, and he has nobody to correct him. So it becomes like a weird thing when Roy Kent, who we spoke about a little bit earlier, starts picking on Jamie and the people that Jamie is like his cronies,
Right.
So there is a power dynamic shift within the team that we start seeing as Jamie realizes, like, all right, I got to do something a little bit differently, or I can't keep picking on other players or Nathan,
Yeah, and there's something with Nate and Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso kind of asks, or he sees that Nate he understands soccer probably a bit more than he does, and so he asks him his advice on maybe some plays, and Ted Lasso's like, yeah, we'll try it out, see if the shoe fits, and go from there. And that kind of throws Nate off, it throws him off. He's like, oh wow, like he's actually giving me a chance. Oh wow, he actually remembers my name,
Right, yeah, that's true. So it is nice seeing Nate get some recognition from Ted Lasso, and eventually even from like the owner of the company, or the owner of the team, Rebecca. But it takes a little bit for him to get there. Now, we should talk about Keely Jones, who's like this professional, like supermodel, who is a little bit older than some of the other players on the team, but she's still a beautiful woman. and she's dating Jamie Tart, and she's always dated like the hot footballer guy, you know?
Right.
And it's through Keeley that Ted Lasso finally understands Jamie, you know? He kind of makes his, I guess, breakthrough into his character, into Jamie Tart's character through Keeley. And he becomes friends with Keeley, and Keeley ultimately becomes a huge character in the show, you know?
Right.
She is, you know, just a super smart, capable, and likable person that begins as the girlfriend character to Jamie Tart, but later on realizes that she wants something else from her life.
Right. She wants something a little bit. She wants something more meaningful, and even then, like, she goes on to take on a role on the team.
Right. Yeah. She becomes, what is it? A social media manager.
A social media manager / she also gets the players their like sponsorships and stuff, and she takes care of setting all that up.
Yeah. So she becomes integral in especially some of the future plot threads that start popping up in season 2, because she kind of starts like the team on a sponsor called Banter, which is a dating app.
Right.
And that we'll see will have huge ramifications in the second season. But other players that I love that, you know, don't really have all that much going on right now are Dani Rojas.
Yeah. When they first like brought him in, that was so funny. Like, cause they brought him in to kind of. It was like a way to like get at Jamie a little bit, and
right, because he's he's a totally different person than Jamie. He's very nice, but he's also a great soccer player.
Yeah, and he's like, you know, soccer's life, and like
football is life.
Yeah.
He's from Guadalajara, Mexico. So he is just a different breed of human. You know, he's so fun. Everything he does is just like I said. He's different. He's from a different culture. He appreciates life and the game differently than other players. And it's just a breath of fresh air for the team.
Yeah, I remember when Jamie was trying to kick, I think they were like penalty shots, and he was he hit the bar, and then like Dani comes up and he's like, oh wow, let's see if I can do that too, and then he like hits the bar, and then like it becomes like a competition, because like, you know, Dani thought he did it on purpose by missing.
Right. Yeah.
And so like Jamie, like, he's like, okay, you know, let's do this, and then he ends up like missing, and then Dani like hits it. Like it was just so funny, like the way like Dani's character came in.
Yes, and he's like so full of joy, and he's super humble at the same time, which is something that Jamie doesn't understand. He doesn't even like, that's not a word that will mean anything to Jamie Tart. But
right, football is death also.
Okay, so we got to talk a little bit about that. There was a whole episode where he accidentally kicked the football and killed the dog that was like the mascot of AFC Richmond, and the dog died, and it basically like put him into a funk where he could not play for the life of him, and he was every time he played, he just saw I guess the other players were like dogs that he could potentially kill, and poor guy, like he had to go into like therapy and everything to to get everything back in order. And he goes, when he came back from therapy, he's just like, I have learned that football is life, but it is also death.
I mean, it really wasn't his fault though, because he was setting up for a shot, and like the dog was chasing a bird.
Yeah, it broke free. from its handler.
Yeah. This show, it's hilarious. It also has a lot of heartwarming instances, too.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about Sam Obisanya. And Sam is a character from Nigeria who is another just a good person, you know? He doesn't curse. He is always very grateful. He understands that he's in a privileged position compared to where he came from to where he is now. So he takes all that in stride. But he's picked on from the first episode onward by Jamie Tart. And he's one of the characters, like Nathan, that Jamie and his cronies will like laugh at and pick on, and it's unfair, obviously, because he's such a nice character. But sometimes people equate nice as being a pushover, and that's ultimately what Rebecca thought Ted Lasso was going to be, a pushover, but it doesn't necessarily work out that way. And it's through Ted Lasso's, you know, it's almost like an aura of kindness that he brings to the team that stuff starts changing. And Sam kind of comes into his own. He has more confidence in himself. He's able to make better plays, and he feels that this team, he starts to feel that this team is a home, you know?
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I was gonna say there is also like that really nice moment where there's that really nice moment where Ted has like that little birthday party for Sam, and you know, because he knows that he was getting homesick, and you know, he kind of wanted to bring the family to Sam. And so yeah, there's a lot of things that are unheard of, you know, within the locker room of a professional soccer team. And you know, he's bringing these things in, and people are like, okay, this is odd, but the team starts to come around with a lot of this stuff. But people on the outside are like, you know, like some of the press were like, you know, oh, so people were saying that you're having a party in the locker room after a loss. Is that a good way to like communicate to your team, you know, after a loss? And you know, Ted kind of, you know, he has like this like really crazy way of answering the press, you know, in like a way that just kind of catches them off guard at first, but then they're like, okay, that's Ted.
Yeah, so a lot of press is like they want statements that are almost gotcha journalism, you know. They want you to say something that they can use as a headline or as a means to generate some vitriol from their fandom or their culture. And I think that's what Trent Krim, the primary the primary journalist character in the show, Trent Krim, the Independent.
They even make fun of that.
Yes,
like the rest of everybody in the room is like Trent Krim, and then he says that, and then like everybody else is like from the Independent. Yes,
because he constantly reiterates that that is where he is, or that's who he is and where he's from. But he's at least in the first couple episodes, he's trying to understand Trent. He's trying to understand Ted Lasso, and he doesn't get it. You know, he doesn't believe that this person is actually such a nice guy, you know, until he actually sits down to have a meal with him.
Oh my god, that was hilarious.
Yes. And this is another, like, you know, throughout the first season, Rebecca, the owner of the company, the owner of the team, has a number of ways of trying to bring Ted Lasso down, because she sees that it's working. So she's trying to bring him down a peg. She tries to get photos of Ted Lasso and Keeley to surface in the tabloids. She tries to get Trent Krim to have a one-on-one conversation with Ted Lasso so that he can make a fool of himself. But in every scenario, he comes out on top and disarms everyone, you know. And I think one of the best moments for me in the show was when Trent Krim, who seems to be an excellent judge of character, like actually sits down with Ted Lasso. They're having this super, super spicy Indian food. And Trent cannot stand any of it. But Ted is like doing his best to, I guess, not hurt the feelings of the people who own the restaurant. So he's trying to make it seem as though, anyway, yeah, you've seen it, but
it was his taxi driver.
It was just a taxi driver.
Yeah, it was the taxi driver, and it was like the restaurant of I guess like his wife's like family or something like that. And he works there too, and he invited Ted to come through, and Ted ends up doing it, while bringing Trent. And Trent kind of I guess he's had Indian before, spicy curry, but Ted hasn't, and so he's like telling the guy like, oh yeah, tell your father-in-law to cook it like at home, like it's home or something like that. And he brings it out. Oh my god. Ted's just eating it, and he's like, man, I'm sorry to swear. Ted and then like Trent just doesn't want anymore. He's like, come on man, we gotta put a dent in this. He's like, put it on my plate. Like, dude, it was I actually really enjoyed that moment.
But I think my favorite part of that particular encounter with Trent Krim is when he says something about like the quality of the quality of the players, and like how he wants to do something good for these for these kids basically. And Trent Krim is like, you honestly mean that, don't you? And he's so surprised because of the world that we inhabit is so like me first and business oriented and win, that this character who doesn't care about any of that stuff just wants to make these kids, or I keep calling them kids, make these players' lives all that much better. He wants to bring out the best in them on and off the field. So and I think that's what the ultimate heart of the show is, that he brings out the best in other people.
Yeah. And yeah, I do enjoy that. I mean, ultimately he does that for even a character like Jamie Tart, who leaves for a little while to go play for Manchester City.
Yeah. The arc for Jamie Tart is an interesting one. And at the end of the day, you end up feeling bad for him. Even though he's this fantastic player, even though he's getting these great deals in terms of like where he's being utilized the best, you understand that he has led a tough life because his father expects so much from him.
Yeah.
And it's not in his best interest.
No.
So you feel bad for the character. You feel bad for because he wants to please his old man, but he doesn't. He also wants to try to do better for himself. So it becomes a personal struggle. What do I do? Be the guy who I was always trained to be, or be the better teammate that will help my team as a whole grow instead of just me. And he ends up making some pretty substantial changes in his outlook on life and the way the team dynamic goes. In the last episode that we saw, we even got a moment where he has a little thing where he's teaching one of the coaches that sometimes it's better to give my teammate space so that they can do the right thing. So it's almost like he has learned lessons from working as a team over the course of these past 2 seasons that he wouldn't have otherwise. And it's fascinating.
Yeah. There was a moment during their game against each other. Jamie makes a pass to a teammate, which results in a goal. And at the end of that game, Jamie's getting yelled at by his father, and Ted passes him this paper as Jamie's getting on his team bus, and he opens it up and it says, that was a great pass, or what a pass, or something like that. And it just really goes to show that Ted Lasso wasn't just invested in him while he was on the team. He was invested in him as a person. He's like, wow, that was really good. I'm glad. I'm glad that you learned something.
Yeah, for sure. So let's go back to the Roy Kent dynamic, because Roy Kent goes through some pretty seismic shifts in his character and his arc throughout the series. He goes from not necessarily the star player, because he's a little bit past his prime, but he goes from team captain to eventually being benched near the end of the first season.
Yeah.
Because he's showing his age. And unfortunately, this is something that every soccer player, every football player has to deal with at a certain point in their career. They just don't perform the way that they did when they were 18, 19, 20. He's no Jamie Tart. He's not able to keep up with the rest of his team. And this kills him as a character, because this is everything he's ever known.
Right.
And you feel for, in real life, this must kill people. Since you were a kid, you've been training to be where you are, and now you are no longer useful to the team. It's tough. It's a tough balance, and it's a tough choice that coaches have to make. And it's not until Coach Beard and Nathan, who ends up becoming a sub coach after several excellent play ideas.
Yeah, that was nice. That was a nice moment.
It wasn't until they, said we have to bench Roy Kent that, Ted Lasso even considered the idea, and he pushed back against it, because, again, that wouldn't be in Roy Kent's best interest in that moment. And he's always trying to please everybody, Ted Lasso. Yeah. Eventually, he realizes it's time to bench Roy Kent, and that kind of brings him into a short spiral. He doesn't know what to do with his life, but he ends up falling for Keeley, who is no longer with Jamie Tart.
Right.
And they end up making a fantastic couple, the two of them. It's funny because they're two totally different people from totally different worlds, but they work really well.
Yeah. There's also that whole dynamic where Ted, so we go on to find out there's actually a reason why Ted took on the job as a football manager for a team of a sport that he has no idea about, and that's because he's going through marital problems.
Yes.
And there's a moment in the show where his wife and son come to visit. They go on to find out that, their marriage is just not working out. And one of the biggest things that, Ted is battling with is that something that he's told himself is that he won't quit anything. And he felt like he was quitting, being married, and it takes its toll on him also throughout the show.
We see it happen slowly over the course of the show. It's not an immediate breakdown for him. But even in the first episode, you get introduced to the nicest guy in the world, Ted Lasso. You can start to see he has this disarming quality, and his charm is almost obnoxious, because it kind of just fills the room. But for whatever reason, even though he's the nicest guy in the world and he will do anything for anyone, when he has that phone call with his wife and kids, or with his wife and kid, you immediately see that something's wrong.
Yeah.
He's very placating. He's no longer like you can tell that it's a one-sided love, and it kills you because you know for a fact this is the nicest guy ever. He would never do anything to harm his wife or whatever, or his relationship with his wife, but for whatever reason it's not working.
Right.
So that's tough. And then the episode where she comes to visit, he's of the mindset that he can make it work.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work out. It doesn't work out the way he expected it to.
Yeah, and it hurts his character, but it in the end, his buddy Beard, Coach Beard shows up, and they just call him Beard. He shows up, with a beard, shows up with a beer to kind of, show his support, and which he's really an interesting character, Beard.
What's funny is that we don't even know his real name.
Right.
We don't know if his name is actually Coach Beard, because that's all. Like, I'm looking it up on Google, and apparently his name is Chris Beard. So his actual name is Beard, which is funny.
Because he has a beard.
Yes, he does have a beard. And he's such a mysterious person because nobody knows what he's thinking until he says something.
Right. But then he has this like relationship with this woman where they have like this really like weird like Queen's Gambit like relationship, because like they connect over chess, and then they're at this party and like they're playing chess without a board, like they're saying their moves, and Ted comes by and is like, oh, you guys are playing without even a board. Oh my god. Listen, Ted's character is like definitely the best, but
Coach is interesting because I haven't really like cracked into that character and like felt a real connection there yet. But he is for sure. How do I say? He's just one of the more interesting characters in terms of Ted Lasso's character, I guess, because he's an interesting case for Ted to crack. He is in a toxic relationship that nobody really knows how to deal with or how to like tell him he's in a toxic relationship until they end up telling him like, you gotta leave. It's not good for you. You're losing sleep. Just emotionally wrecked.
Oh yeah. I mean, they do have, I don't know, like Ted, he might not understand everything about Beard, but they do have this weird connection that sometimes they do understand each other.
Right, yeah, and they kind of understand each other because of the experience that they've had. I don't know how long that they've known each other, but they have such a rapport with one another that they can check each other when necessary.
Right.
And Beard does this several times over the course of the show, like with Roy Kent being benched. Coach Beard has told Ted what it is and like why he needs to do something, like when Ted doesn't see it himself.
Right, and that was actually a funny moment where they have that disagreement and Ted goes to talk to Beard and Beard like gives him this like silent treatment, and Ted's like, oh, the silent treatment. It's like, kind of like, oh, like I haven't had that before. And then Beard just like slowly starts inching away, then he like starts running away from him. He's like, oh my gosh. Yeah, there's like really like good moments.
Let's talk about Nathan a little bit, because we kind of skirted over his arc a little bit. He went from being someone who was the pushover character. He was bullied, he's in the background, he's trying to just keep the team in order just by managing like their towel situation, their boot situation,
right,
their water situation. He's the guy who's just in charge of making sure the team runs at optimal performance. Right. And he goes and he has a couple ideas for how to run the team better. He runs it by Ted. Ted is a person that Nathan hasn't ever experienced in his life.
Right.
He's willing to listen to Nathan, which is something that he as a character has never had. And he's very shy, at least in the first season.
Yeah.
Because he's always been the guy that nobody cares to listen to. And that's sad. You know, there are people like that. There are plenty of people like that. So Nathan is a very relatable character in that respect. But when it comes to after Nathan gives these ideas about how to like do certain plays or like who to bench and who not to bench, he ends up becoming a coach for the team, which leaves that that water boy position open, and another person picks that up, and an interesting dynamic shift begins where he becomes the person that he used to hate.
Yeah.
And he doesn't see it. He doesn't see that he's being a jerk. He doesn't see that he's bullying others or that he is lording his position over others, which really comes to a head later on in season 2.
Yeah, and like he goes from like this character that like you're happy to see get his recognition to, like, you know, man, you know, don't let that power get to your head, and it's getting to his head, you know. Yes,
and what's interesting is he made a fantastic call in one of the games that, you know, ended up that seemed like a crazy notion at the time, to bench certain players and let subs into the game, and it turned out that they won the game, and you know, all the headlines are now talking about him positively.
Right. And right. He had to do that after Ted had a panic attack.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, I forgot Ted. Poor Ted. Yeah. We'll get back to that in a bit. But he has this moment where he takes charge, and the headlines of the tabloids and the press are all positive praise for Nathan, the new coach.
Yeah.
And like you said, it gets to his head. Not only the power, but now the fame. And he is not coaching certain people like he should. You know, there are certain players that he is now actively dismissing and actively telling them that they're lesser individuals. And Coach Beard sees this and he freaks out, you know, in his own Coach Beard way.
Yeah.
Which is something that I really respect about Coach Beard. Like, he sees wrong and he's willing to stop it immediately.
Yeah, he'll call it out. Yeah, that moment that he called out, that was funny. He's like, the door's behind you. And then Nate's like, Nate leaves and he's like, oh wait, no, this is my office. And he comes back and then like Beard's gone.
Right, yeah, it's so bizarre. But it's interesting because I've experienced this notion where you get a negative comment and your day's ruined. Yeah. You know? I've been on YouTube long enough to have negative comments or trolls say something about the content that you're producing or the manner in which you look or your character or whatever, that it'll ruin my day and I'll get angry, you know, or I don't ever try to take it out on other people. I'm not that kind of person, but I've gotten moody because of it, you know? So I understand where this comes from. So he gets a negative comment about, like, on Twitter or whatever, and he immediately takes it out on the new, I guess the manager of the locker room, basically the guy who replaced him when he moved up, when he was promoted. And what's crazy is that the kid just did something extremely nice for Nathan, and he took this opportunity to just lord it over him and freak out.
There's that moment, and I think this was right after that Twitter moment where a player comes to him about not being coached. Colin, and he Nathan says that Jamie and Danny are, you know, what do you say, like Van Gogh or Picasso or something like that?
Van Gogh and Picasso, yeah.
That they inspire and that he's not somebody that inspires, and instead he would be a painting that would hang in a motel covering bloodstains. That's messed up.
That's like the most well-written diss of all time. Frankly, like, he really like just broke down. Like, that's worse than saying you're garbage, you know? That's you've had the time to think about what kind of artist this guy is, and it's just basically someone to cover up terrible things, you know? It's just it's a disgusting way that he treated Colin, and that's what Coach Beard freaked out on. And so that's huge,
you know. Because, and I understand that, because that's not the kind of coaching that any of them like. And even then, so Roy he's retired from playing professionally in the second season, and he eventually becomes a coach himself. And even Roy, being as rough as he isn't like isn't what Nate did, you know?
Right? No, yeah. Nate is on a power trip.
Right.
That's not something that we've ever seen Roy do. And it's actually it's an interesting thing, because everyone else is making positive changes in their life. And Nathan is making a positive change in his life, but in so doing, he is using all the past experiences that he's received at being in the bottom, and using that against the new bottom. And it's a huge character flaw that I hope we will see fixed later on in the season.
Right. Right now, he'll probably spiral out until he hits, you know, either...
I have a feeling he's going to lose his coaching role on the team.
I do too. But yeah, like, I mean, even Roy, where Roy actively didn't want to coach Jamie because, you know, of their past and how Jamie is, he eventually goes on to, like, inspire, like, you know, he's like, and he tells Ted, he's like, man, you've you know, brought him out to be this kind of person. That's not who he is. You know, it's okay for him to be this person in certain situations, not against the team, but more against the other team, you know?
Right.
And it ends up working.
Right. Yeah. The show's good, man. The show's good. We can keep talking about, like, random stuff, but this show's good.
It's a really good show. I do want to talk a little bit about Rebecca, the team owner. You do get to know a bit more about her ex-husband, and, you know, kind of what happened with them, that he cheated on her with somebody younger, and you really like get to learn that, like, I mean, he really is like a jerk.
Right, and she's a damaged individual.
Right. And so she eventually faces the fact she tried to get Ted in trouble by looking like he was trying to get together with Keeley. And so, you know, she kind of comes around from being this, like, really rude person to being this person that's, you know, finally joined, you know, Team Ted Lasso, that, you know, she believes in him now, and she believes that he's not going to destroy the team, that he understands what he's doing, and he's using every asset that he can. You know, he's you know, seeing promising people. You know, he believed, and he went to Roy. I mean, he was the one that went to Roy, like, you know, hey, you know, become a coach. And Roy at first is like, no way.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it is nice that there is a really good, like, dynamic between her and Ted, because she understands what it is to be divorced, and she understands that hardship. And so there's those moments where she, you know, connects with them and is like, hey, you know, it's okay, I understand. I do really like that. You know, Higgins has his moment too, where, you know, every year during the holidays, he has a few teammates over, you know, because they're from out of the country, you know, they're not within their countries. And so it's usually like a couple people here and there, and in that episode, you know, all of them come over.
Right, and it's actually a super heartwarming episode, and it goes to show like how great of a person Higgins is and his family, but also how much the team has changed and the way the team works as a team, you know. So it was really nice to see how they were able to accommodate that many people, and yeah, I love the show, man. Going back to Rebecca, she's been within the second season trying to find some replacement for her ex, and she's been trying to find love through several different means. She's been dating, she's been seeing footballers on the side, she's been seeing she's been like talking to people on this dating app called Banter,
which ends up becoming like one of their big sponsors. That they replace another sponsor because was it Sam, one of the teammates had a protest against them because of like a whole like oil disaster in Nigeria that they had, and everybody backed him up behind it. I actually like enjoyed that, even Rebecca.
Yeah, that's true, and it's a really cool thing where like everyone's voice is heard in the show, from the lowest, you know, the character in the locker room that nobody sees, to you know, individuals from out of the country who are now on your team, to the owners of the company, to the coaches. Everyone has their episode or episodes or arcs, and it's really interesting seeing now that Rebecca and Sam are talking to each other on Banter.
I know, that's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting when they find out who it is.
I'll have Jen jump in here. She's not with us now, but I'll have her jump in with a few thoughts on Rebecca and Sam, because she called it like weeks ago. She nice. Yeah, she did. I was like, no, there's no way, but yeah, she's gonna drag me a little bit for not believing in her theory. But
they tried to curveball you though to make it seem like it was Ted.
Right. Yeah, they did. That was a red herring for sure.
Ted Lasso is an amazing show. I love it. I think like some episodes are literally a masterpiece. I think it's fantastic. As far as Sam and Rebecca goes, I called it like at least 2 weeks before the episode aired. When I told Dakota, he mocked me. He didn't believe me. He was a naysayer. And quite frankly, it hurt our feelings, or it hurt my feelings in our marriage quite a bit.
Whoa.
I don't know if we'll ever recover from that distrust. But yeah, basically, and then like the day before the episode where they confirmed it, I went out with my friend, and she also watches the show, and I told her, and she was like, where do you get that from? Like, I just don't get, like, that's just so random. She's obviously texting Ted. And I was like, it's way too obvious for her to be texting Ted. Just because, like, they're the same age and the same color, and it's like everybody expects them to get together, you know, even though they're from different countries or whatever. It's just like the most common sense thing to happen. And the show has been wildly unpredictable from the start. And it's also been really progressive from the start. So to me, even if they end up together later, I feel like even right now, Ted is clearly having panic attacks and is not emotionally available. He's still reeling from his own divorce. But okay, the things that basically confirmed to me, or like that gave me the hint that this was going to be happening, were in the episode where Keely breaks up with Jamie Tart at that gala thing, or that benefit show or whatever. Keely asks Rebecca, would you ever date a footballer? And Rebecca scoffs and immediately says no. And I always kind of like, you know, she kind of like brushes it off or like, you know, apologizes or whatever. But to me, like whenever a character says like, absolutely not, I would never do that, especially in a show as like close to real life as Ted Lasso is, I feel like they're gonna eventually at some point. Just so often in life, like I've said, no, I would never do that, or, you know, feel like you're resolved in something, but then you end up surprising yourself. And I think that this is going to be a situation where Rebecca obviously surprises herself. There have been like instances where Sam's like complimented Rebecca, and there was a scene where he invited Rebecca out for something with the team, and she thought he was hitting on her and she declined. but he said, like something like, I would be honored to date someone like you, but no, I mean just for the team. And I thought there was a bit of chemistry there as well, and that's what gave me the impression that she was dating Sam. I feel like there might be more to it than that, just because I've seen the show like quite a few times, so like so many little hints were dropped. I felt that like as soon as I saw she was on Banter, I felt like it was going to be him.
To jump in really quick, there's also the moment where she sticks up for Sam's choice not to, I guess, use that sponsorship with that oil company in that one episode. And I think that gave him a lot of respect for her.
Yeah. So there's that too. I just feel like there's like a lot of little hints to it. So I'm really happy. I just watched the most recent episode, and I'm super happy with it because, I don't know, it's just like, I feel like a prophetess,
A prophetess. Okay, you've had
a prophetess among men, among simpletons.
Okay.
No one put faith in me. Even after the episode, my father-in-law was like, yeah, but you're wrong. He called Sam a red herring, and that, obviously she was going to be with Ted. And I was like, you're wrong. No one believed in me. Nobody put faith in me, and here I am,
All right, you've had enough with this, Mike. We'll bring it back to the real show. Thanks for doing this stuff.
Thank you guys for having me.
But let's talk a little bit about Ted Lasso and the therapist that ends up joining the show.
Right.
After the Danny Rojas incident, she kind of just becomes a contracted therapist that the entire team sees. But the only person that doesn't seem to want to take advantage of this is Ted Lasso himself.
Right. Yeah, because he had been taught that that therapists, really aren't good, that therapists aren't good beings, kind of throughout his life. And I mean, he is starting to see the positive impact of that therapist throughout the different players. A lot of them seem lighter on their feet. They seem a lot happier. And so, yeah, he finally gets to that moment to where he's like, I need to speak to her. But, I mean, he's still fighting himself a little bit on it.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting because he doesn't seem like the type of person to ever have panic attacks, but it's Rebecca that calls it out, like when she sees Ted suddenly like just crumbling, in one episode in the first season. And now now he's doing it again, and that's why he left the football pitch in that one episode. He was having a panic attack. Yeah. And you can tell that the therapist really cares for the people that she is seeing, even though she comes off as someone who's hard to read at first. You can tell that she really wants to help the individuals that she's listening to. And it's taking Ted Lasso quite a bit to muster up the courage to actually sit down in that chair. But
no, for sure. He even has like that moment where he lashes out, like, why should I talk to you? You don't know me. You're getting paid to do this. You don't care. That kind of stuff. And that's like a very, there's maybe like there's a couple of moments where it's like it's not Ted Lasso's character. So that there's something going on.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting seeing how this season develops and finishes. We have a couple episodes left. I think it's a 10 or 11 episode season. But I think that is our show for this evening. Or this morning. Yeah, it's still 11:30 for us. What am I talking about?
There's definitely a lot about the show. We could go on forever about it. I think that we hit a lot of key points.
I like the fact that it's just a bunch of characters who are growing as individuals.
Right.
They each have changed. They each have learned something about themselves that they need to fix, and have either done so or are in the process of doing so. And it's really all started with Ted Lasso. If he wasn't in the picture, none of these individuals would have changed for the better the way that they have.
Right, and I like that all the characters seem natural, like nothing seems thrown in.
Right, and it's an important and interesting thing when a show does this, that they make every character have their own agency. Every character wants their own thing, They don't. It's not just like it's easy for them to write like as a team show. Like every character wants the same thing, but every character wants their own thing and has their own struggles and has their own thing that they're working on, and that's how you know it's a good written show or a good written anything. Is when other characters have their own wants and needs outside of what the plot demands.
For sure.
Guys, thank you for listening to episode 35 of Project Geekology. Next week, we're going to be talking about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I'm very excited to see it again. Anthony, you should be very excited to see it for the first time. It's going to blow you away. You better text me afterwards because I want to talk about it a little bit. But any final words?
Yes, this week we're talking about people kicking soccer balls. Next week we're going to be talking about people kicking people's faces.
Whoa. Yeah, actually, I think that does happen. All right. Thank you guys again for listening. Have a good one. We'll see you next week. You better be here for our discussion of Shang-Chi. We will know if you are not.
I know. We know. We find out. Goodbye.
Oh, also check us out on Twitter. That's probably our most busy interaction place, probably. I know we also have Project Geekology on Instagram as well that you can find, but I'm personally most involved on Twitter. And Anthony, what about you? Do you feel like you're more Twitter or Instagram? Okay,
I bounce between both. I interact on both. I make sure that we have things going on in both.
Nice. You keep that up. You keep that up, buddy. All right, guys. Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.